Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company, the bank that puts you first. They can meet your banking and financing needs for personal, agricultural, business, commercial, mortgages, and so much more. Visit firstbank.com to learn more.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into episode 493 of the Tech Sideline podcast. The ACC Preseason Poll is here. Virginia Tech, is picked 8th in the ACC. All that and much more coming up in episode 493 of the Tech Sideline podcast, which starts right now. And we record on Tuesday, July 28th, 2026 from the Tech Solutions Studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Remember to like, subscribe, and refer the show to a friend. I'm your host, Carter Hill. To my left is our lead analyst and columnist, Chris Coleman. Across the way is our managing editor, Mr. David Cunningham. To his left is our senior staff writer, Mr. Andy Bitter. And Nick Brown, our director of media, is producing behind the scenes. Been too long since we've done one of these in Blacksburg. I know we had the couple ones in Charlotte like 2 weeks ago, but it's been I think Brian White being hired was the last podcast we did here on set. So good to see everybody. Good to be back here in the Berg.
Yeah, it's the summer, man. It's downtime. I think it's probably this is the first time we've all been in a room together at the same time since last week, and even before then, or since 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And even before then, it had probably been several weeks before.
I was gone for like 5 straight. I had slept in my bed once over a month.
Right.
So I got back last week. It feels good to get back to normalcy.
Yeah. The last weekend was my first full weekend in Blacksburg since May. So
good for you.
Been an amazing summer. Saw a lot of World Cup games, and
that's good. Take full advantage of the time away.
We have to, given
I had
the
a teacher
schedules.
in high school, Mr. Swadzinski, who said, we go on spring break. He's like, I don't want you coming back and feeling like, oh man, I'm all rested and relaxed and ready for that. He's like, I want you to come back exhausted because I want you to have spent life to the fullest over the spring break. And I've always taken that. It's great advice. I actually saw him. He was a Minnesota assemblyman or whatever they call it, a rep in the Minnesota State House. So he's just retiring. He moved from teaching into politics. He was a U.S. government teacher, but he's now stepping away from that role. But he was over at the fireworks show in Eden Prairie, so I saw him there.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Nice.
But that's great advice. Live by that advice.
So I'm taking another little mini vacation.
Chris is going to go and get exhausted.
Exactly. And then I even decided in mid-August, the 14th and the 15th, go to one more Braves trip.
You should.
But because we don't know how much baseball we're going to get next year.
Right.
That's true.
That's so depressing. I don't even like thinking about that. I went to 4 MLB games this summer.
Yeah.
I'm going to one tomorrow night. That's why I'm missing talking with Teal this week.
I've been to 5, and I've got 3 more coming. So 2 more Braves, and then the Red Sox Cubs the night before the Tech BC game.
And whatever playoff games the Braves go to, right?
We'll see. We'll see if I have enough money left by then.
Yeah. Well, that's why I want to keep going to. My brother lives in Cincinnati, so going up and missing talking with Teal to help him move some stuff because he's studying abroad. It's a long story. Anyway, going up to the Reds game tomorrow night, and same to your point, Andy. Want to go to as many as possible this year because I don't know if there's going to be Major League Baseball next season. We could talk for 2 hours about that, but that is not the podcast for today. Let's talk about the ACC because smell that, football is in the air. So the ACC Preseason Poll has been released. And Nick, can we throw that bad boy up on the screen real fast? So if you're watching here on YouTube, that is the ACC Preseason Poll that was put together by the 188 media members that submitted a poll down in Charlotte a couple weeks ago. If you're listening, Miami was the overwhelming favorite to win the league. They received 165 of 188 media votes. Now, one of those votes belongs to the Stanford Cardinal. Yeah. So
whoever did that needs to man up and own it.
I agree. So
I liken that to years ago, Kyle Bailey voted Brendan Motley ACC Player of the Year. And I went up to him like, come on, man, you're making us all look bad.
Christian Sports finest. But yeah, so Miami overwhelming favorite, 165 of the 188 media votes. SMU was picked to finish 2nd, Louisville 3rd, Clemson 4th, Georgia Tech 5th, Virginia was picked to finish 6th, NC State 7th, Virginia Tech is picked 8th. What is everybody's reaction to the Hokies being picked to finish 8th in the ACC?
It's about what I expected. I went into it thinking they would get picked anywhere between 5th or 8th. I thought anything above 4th would be overly optimistic. I thought anything below 8th would be a little bit negative. But if you look at it, number 5 through number 8 and the total amount of points, I know it's not on your screen, you'll just have to listen to me, but it's extremely close. Georgia Tech, 2,006 points. UVA, 1,981, NC State 1,964, Virginia Tech 1,962. So the voters just about have a tie between 5th and 8th, which is kind of how I view things. There's a large number of teams in the middle of this league that you can look at and say, oh, they're strong here but weak there, and the other team's strong here and weak there. It's kind of a crapshoot, and when it comes down to a crapshoot, you kind of got to look at their schedules. And I think that's probably why Virginia Tech is 8th instead of 6th or something like that, is when you look at their schedule, it's more difficult than those other teams.
A couple things on this. I hope people seeing this save the energy for the other ACC meter writers that they came at me with when we put out our poll previously, because I had Virginia Tech 8th in this same spot. I mean, you say 5 to 8 are all kind of the same. I think 5 to 13 are all kind of the same. It's sort of that meaty middle of the ACC, maybe even higher than that. I don't think Clemson's anything special this year. I think they're getting by on name recognition. And I say that, I think I put them 3rd on my poll, so I still had them pretty high. But I think there's a lot more similarity between a lot of these teams in the middle. And like Chris said, it comes down to schedules, who has more favorable schedules, because this is not an apples to apples situation with all these teams. You don't play the exact same schedule as everybody else. So I'll just take 3 right here to compare them and why I had UVA and NC State ahead of Virginia Tech. Here's who Virginia Tech plays. Just I'll just run down where they place within the media poll. They play number 1 team, 2, 4, 5, 6, 9, 12, then 16 and 17.
And those top 3 on the road.
Right.
Yes.
So 5 of the top 6 teams in this poll. UVA plays number 2 SMU, then 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. A lot of teams in the bottom half of the schedule. NC State, get ready for this one. 3 Louisville, 6 UVA, then 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17. These are not the same thing. These are not the same schedules that these teams are playing. So, if NC State goes 6-3 with that schedule, I don't think NC State is that good, but I think going 6-3 against that schedule is very possible for that team with the quarterback they have. And obviously, Dave Doran's been there a while. It's not like they're rebuilding or anything like that. I just think it's a tougher road for Virginia Tech, and that's why I have them 8th.
I would just also think about when you look at that meaty middle, as Andy called it. Some people might value certain positions higher, right? If you've got a quarterback with name recognition, I think you might be a little bit higher up the list. That's why I think NC State, coming off of an okay year, but you've got a really good quarterback in CJ Bailey. I have Cal higher than probably anybody. And I think it's an interesting situation given new head coach coming in, but JKS, in my opinion, is one of the best quarterbacks in the league and the country. Can he elevate them to that next level? And I think that's where, turning it to Virginia Tech, if Virginia Tech is going to finish a little bit higher, part of that will come down to Ethan Grunkemeyer. He can be a difference maker. That quarterback position, can he stack up against the league's best when it comes down into crunch time? And if you also look at who Virginia Tech plays, you've got Miami, SMU, and Clemson all on the road. That's 1, 2, and 4. And as Andy pointed out, and Georgia Tech and Virginia, the 2 teams in the top 8 that they don't, or top 7 they don't play, are NC State and Louisville. It's that is a very difficult schedule compared to a team like Virginia or a team like Cal.
Not only does Tech have a more difficult road schedule with Miami, SMU, and Clemson on the road, they play 5 road games and just 4 home games.
Right, yeah.
Meanwhile, UVA's got a really easy schedule compared to Virginia Tech. Plus, they've got 5 home games instead of 4 home games, because the Brazil game, which nobody was interested in going to, has now been flipped to Charlottesville.
And here's I'm picking Virginia Tech to beat UVA this year.
Same.
Yeah, but I still think UVA will finish higher in the state.
Right, because of the
just
schedule.
Just based on the schedule. I think you have to look at stuff like that. And another thing to keep in mind is we're wrong all the time on this stuff. I mean, what was it a couple years ago? The media picked Florida State to win the league, and they finished 17th. That's a pretty big miss. 16 spots, fairly significant miss. Last year, I had Wake Forest last. They won 9 games. UVA was picked 13th.
14th, maybe.
13th, 14th, whatever they were. They won 11 games, the regular season champs. So what we think of these teams is obviously not always what results during the season. So, seeing Virginia Tech 8th, first of all, it's a preseason poll. You shouldn't make too big of a deal out of it. Message some people on Twitter that are making too big of a deal about it. And second of all, you don't think James Franklin loves this? They're underestimating us. They don't think we're going to finish. This is just a gift. A good coach could make motivation out of anything. The Michael Jordan slight. And I took that personally. They're picking us 5th. They think 4 teams are better than us. This is just easy bulletin board material if they want to use that and say, they think you're going to be middle of the pack this year. Go show them you're not.
Look at that.
Rat poison.
Right. Stanford got a first place vote and you didn't. Right?
I would use that.
Honestly, that's a good pick.
Stanford, a team on our schedule. There's somebody picked them to finish it in first place.
Florida State getting 3 is interesting too.
That is interesting.
As far as the Hokies go, you look at the preseason poll. That ACC first home game under James Franklin is against Pitt, the team right next to him, and that's why that game is XXL as far as the biggest test in September. To date, when that game is played, that will be the biggest test of the James Franklin era thus far. And it's against a coach that Franklin knows well. And Pat Narduzzi, his teams play really, really hard and tough.
When you beat Pitt, it's like beating Akron.
That's what Franklin said about
That
Narduzzi.
quote's being brought up that week. That's for sure.
But if the Hokies start with BC, that's their ACC opener. BC's picked 16th. But that Pitt game is going to be a very interesting challenge. And I also think, and we're going to get to Carolina later, it's funny to see North Carolina, Carter, all the way down at 15th.
And that was pre the news yesterday. Not that yesterday has anything to do with the on-field product for this year's team.
I'm sure losing the GM, everyone's like, well, now I have to reconsider
Right, exactly.
everything
Yeah.
North Carolina.
But it is funny because, so to your point, Andy, that's what I wanted to get at. Just because you picked Virginia to finish higher than Virginia Tech does not mean that you think Virginia is better than Virginia Tech. Same with NC State, maybe same with a Pitt type of deal as well.
Well, in that specific game, and I'm picking that. Sometimes I look at games. I look at where the game is at. What is the motivation? I think Virginia Tech will lose at Cal this year.
Yeah.
I think JKS is a really good quarterback. I think that's a tough time of the year to go on the road like that. Perhaps after they've had a little bit of success early in the season, to then make a cross-country road trip and people will be like, Cal, what's Cal done? It's like, Cal knocked SMU out of the ACC title game last year, the last game of the regular season. But then I look at the Virginia Tech-Virginia matchup. It's like, which side is going to be more motivated going into that game this year? The one that won 11 games this year and won handily in that, or the one that barely scored a touchdown and lost by 20 in the regular season finale? That was an embarrassment to Virginia Tech, the level that they've played against UVA over all the years. I think that's going to be a very motivated team. I think Franklin will be very motivated in that. I'll point out that Brent Pry never lost to UVA.
That's
Didn't play
true.
in the first year, wasn't around in the last year. 2-0
2-0
in his 2 matches. And they weren't particularly close.
Right.
He blew them out both years. So I think this is a coaching staff that understands that matchup, will get them fired up for that matchup. And sometimes the more desperate team, or the one that wants it more, is the one that goes out and wins it. Plus, they'll be at home. I think that'll be a big boon.
The other thing I want to point out is when you look at the ACC media predictions and even our individual predictions, we're not accounting for ties here. There's going to be ties. There's going to be the 6th, 7th, and 8th team could be a 3-way tie, and then who wins the tiebreaker?
Well, you can't have 17 teams without a tie.
Exactly.
Ties up and down the thing.
Yeah. So after hearing their tiebreaker explanations in Charlotte, I'm just I might be even more confused than I was before. I'm sure maybe once we get to November and we start breaking it down, we won't be as confused. But there's so many rules with the tiebreakers and things like that you could sit here and say, I think all 3 of these teams are going to go 5-3, and let me go through all of these tiebreakers in the ACC and figure out which one I think is going to be 5th, which one is 6th, which one is 7th.
Then there's one that's
right?
5-4 in there too, because they play a different amount of games.
Different amount of
everything.
games, right?
Yeah.
So it's just with the unbalanced scheduling, the crazy tiebreakers, some teams with 5 home games, sometimes some teams with 9 overall games, some teams with 8 overall games. It's just this will be the hardest year of all time to do preseason rankings.
Yeah.
Plus, there are ranges on this stuff. Have you guys seen that ESPN FPI graphic that's going around, says the percentages on each game? And Tech is actually above 50% in 9 of the games. So everybody's like 9-3. Oh, I'll take that 9-3. It's like, okay, but it's not. You have to add up the percentages. Right. It actually predicts a 7-5 record on the season because if every game was 51%, you wouldn't be like 12-0. No, all those games are toss-ups at this point.
And I'm used to losing toss-ups.
Right. So, I mean, I think 7-5 is sort of the right in the middle. That's what they could be. That's sort of what the analytics predict. But teams overperform that all the time. A couple bounces go your way, turnover luck type stuff, how you play in close games. I mean, that can get you up to 9 wins very easily. It could also, tick you down a couple notches to 5 and 7. But there's ranges to these things. So so we're sort of putting Virginia Tech in the middle of, or at least I am, middle of what these expectations could be. Whereas I think a lot of fans are very excited about this team, understandably. And they're looking at best case scenarios and all this stuff. And in prediction wise, I think that's where I've gotten in trouble in the past is when I pick, rosiest best outcome type prediction. A couple years ago when Tech was coming off the season when, they had drones, they got their quarterback, they got all these guys returning on the defense. They should be pretty good. And they ended up going 6-6 again. It's like I maybe got a little too rosy in the prediction.
I picked them to go 7-5 last year. What the hell was I thinking?
Yeah.
I think I said 7-5. I think I said 7-5 and Brent Pry will not be fired. It's like, well, that was over by September 15th.
Quickly,
like it wasn't even possible.
I would also add that wacky stuff happens where, it's not going to happen anymore because they changed the tiebreakers, but Duke played in the ACC championship game last year.
Are you sure it's not going to happen again, though? That's the thing.
The ACC will keep it from happening.
Well, yeah,
despite the ACC will figure out a way to mess it up. I just have total faith in that.
But despite Duke's non-conference record being terrible, Duke had a really good conference record, didn't really play anybody, and was up high, right? It helps when you've got a really good quarterback in Darian Mensah, who's now going to Miami. I'm curious. It'll be tomorrow when we find out who the preseason player of the year is. If it'll be a guy like Mensah, if it'll be a guy like Malachi Toney, if it'll be Kevin Jennings from SMU. But there's a lot of it's fun to discuss these things because right now everybody's undefeated and everybody has a lot of hope. And you can look at best case scenario, worst case scenario, but there are a lot of these teams in the middle, including a Virginia Tech team coming off 3 wins, including a Duke team coming off an ACC championship where you're like, okay, how good are they really going to be? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, I think it's like Virginia Tech, or Duke, Virginia Tech at like 7-8. A lot of people think they're going to be around the same spot. That's what makes it interesting.
Who would you vote for player of the year? I went Mensah.
I think I went Toney.
I always kind of default to the quarterback. I never know if it's like a prediction of what you think will happen or if it's who you think is the best player.
I think Mensah's really good, and since he's going to be having that U on the side of his helmet, I think that makes him a front runner if he has a good year.
Well, I just think if you're like trying to predict what it's going to be, there seems to be a tendency to go towards quarterbacks in those awards every year.
Especially
if he puts up those kind of numbers that he put at Duke last year at Miami, I think, and they're in the playoff again, I absolutely think he'll be out there. But I think Toney might be the better player.
It's hard for me to pick, like running backs these days because what used to be a 1,800-yard rusher these days is now like a 1,300-yard rusher.
Yeah, with not as many touchdowns.
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, Toney came and played in Lane last year and made it look super easy.
He was the best player in the national championship game.
Yeah, he was.
Arguably.
Yeah.
I mean, Mendoza was pretty good too.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at how he took over that game late in the game and got Miami back in that thing. We saw what he did here in Blacksburg. I think he's that kind of talent. But I don't know always if the receivers will get the kind of stats that will warrant end of year consideration for that. Whereas I know the quarterback will put up the stats.
Hey, Kevin Jennings too. I think he's an interesting one because he really burst on the scene like late of last year and really took over. I mean, they beat Miami last year at home.
For the transfer portal era, he's been there forever.
Yeah,
right? 4th year.
I think he suffers from the helmet decal. If he was on Miami or Clemson, he'd get a lot more recognition than SMU.
You got to think. Remember, two years ago, they were a playoff team and he was their starting quarterback. They lost to Penn State, but they were in the playoffs and he was their quarterback.
Who'd you vote for, Chris, for preseason player of the year?
I didn't.
Oh, you do? Okay,
I
okay.
never vote in that
I didn't mean
stuff.
to put you on
But
the spot,
I would put Mensa.
Yeah, I voted for Mensa. Not that it matters, but yeah. So it's funny. You guys are talking about the standings and everything, and the uneven amount of games and the uneven schedules. Not to beat this dead horse because we literally talk about it all the time, but it is so true. That is another byproduct of the ACC just being way too big. And unfortunately, I mean, not that the preseason poll means anything, but that's the situation we find ourselves in. Because to your point, NC State, I'm not saying they will, but NC State, same with Pitt. NC State and Pitt both have borderline elite quarterbacks, very good quarterbacks at the collegiate level. And their schedule also lines up to the point where they can win 7 games in the league potentially. Not saying that would put you in the picture to go to the ACC title game, but that could be a realistic scenario where a team like that does something like that and they find themselves in Charlotte just because they literally did not play anybody in the ACC.
You're right. And the other thing, Carter, is also its name value. And I don't mean just the name of the team. I'm talking about the name of individual players. I can't name a single player on Wake Forest team. And I can only name like a handful of UVA players. I used to know their whole roster.
I was going to say Desmond Claiborne, but he's gone.
Right. Yeah, finally.
He was good last year.
He was. He's a good player.
Is that safety, that Anderson guy that got the
Nick
scholarship?
Anderson's gone
too.
He was the 15th year senior last year.
And Johnson, who used to play at Tech, transferred there.
Braylon
Johnson.
Yeah, he's still there, right?
Yeah. But that's pretty much it. And
You got one guy.
I used to be able to name all of UVA's roster because Tech would recruit him and everybody'd stay at the same school. Now there's so much movement in the portal, and
Christian Ellis, I know that one.
Yeah, there you go. There's one. But it's just so I'm more inclined to say, okay, yeah, because I know the Miami quarterback or I know the Louisville running back, and I know those guys are good. I mean, for all I know, Wake Forest has a guy like a wide receiver or something who's going to be just as good, but he played for Troy last year that I've never heard of. So yeah. So some of it's a little bit of name bias as well, like individual, like just players.
Yeah, I mean that's what I think. You look at CJ Bailey, JKS, two really good quarterbacks. You mentioned Louisville, Isaac Brown, K'Wan Brown. Like you go down the list. That's why I think like a Georgia Tech team is super interesting because they've got Hosley back. They added blanking on the other running back's name, but then they've got Alberto Mendoza. It's like, is he going to
Haynes?
Yes, Haynes. It's like, is Mendoza going to be the real deal? Can he elevate them? They were picked 5th, Georgia Tech, and it's just after losing Haynes King. Mm-hmm. So it's a little
Jamal Haynes.
Everybody has to be named Haynes.
Yes. So it'll be interesting to when we like look back at the end of the season and go because there's going to be one or two teams where you're just completely wrong.
Yeah.
About.
Well, this is the fun part about college football is we act like we know stuff before the season, and to Chris's point, there's so much volatility with rosters now that who was the best Virginia Tech player in the last 5 years?
Bishel Tootin.
North Carolina A&T running back, right? Going into that year, nobody goes, this team is special because they got North Carolina A&T's running back. And he was their best player, arguably. At who else would be up there?
Lane
guys that were up there.
APR.
Yeah.
Yeah, APR.
But I mean, Tootin is in the conversation. And nobody would have thought that would have been a special addition that year.
Right.
So you just don't know. I mean, BC has this quarterback that's coming up from Division II, I think.
Yes.
They're like, this guy's the next Trinidad Chambliss or whatever.
Or he might look exactly like a Division II quarterback.
Right, exactly. Like, you don't know. So I think that's part of the fun of this thing is the volatility of what these standings could be and some team coming out of the middle of nowhere. I mean, Virginia Tech fans won't admit it, but from football at large, UVA was a great story last year, winning 11 games. Coming out of nowhere to do that. I mean, Indiana coming out of nowhere in its history to win the national championship. I think this is kind of fun that you go into it and, it's, the Kevin Garnett theory. Anything is possible with these teams going into this thing. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Question about Virginia Tech, not necessarily with the standings, but I was talking to a buddy about this yesterday, actually at lunch today with some people about their season as a whole and just talking about Virginia Tech's roster and what they can be. Again, nothing to do with the standings, but it's a quick buy or sell. If Virginia Tech does not go 7-5 or 8-4, would you be surprised?
Would I be surprised? Not necessarily, but I'm picking them to go 7-5. That's my pick. So that's my most likely result, I think, for the season. If they bumped up to nine wins, it wouldn't shock me. UVA won 11 last year out of nowhere.
Right.
Like it happens. It happens sometimes. Sometimes you have injuries at major spots. I think they're better at depth, but man, and you don't wish this on anybody, but if something happens to Kamari Copeland, what are they going to do at defensive tackle?
What are they going to do
Right.
at quarterback if something happens to Grunkemeyer?
Yeah,
Everybody else
I
is
think
a
they're
freshman.
better situated there than previously, at least.
There's more physical talent.
Bryce
There are a
Baker
lot
could
of
go out
questions.
there and do
Yeah.
that. There aren't a lot of 300-pound individuals on the Virginia Tech campus that they can just go out there and plug and play. I mean, I already question whether they have 2 defensive tackles to play in there. If you lose the top one, then all of a sudden you're sort of in a world of hurt on the inside. So it's all these variables that could pop up during the season. So I would not necessarily be surprised if it happened, but it's definitely not my pick for what I think would happen.
Yeah, they're one of several plenty of teams in this league, just like Clemson, just like NC State, just like Pitt, Georgia Tech, Virginia. I could see going anywhere between 6-6 and 9-3.
Well, what was last year's hope? This team might be okay as long as you have no injuries on the offensive line, and then 4 guys get injured in the first month of the season.
Oh, they were hurt before the season even started.
Yeah.
And then they're playing like their 9th guy or something like that.
Yeah.
You're like, this is over. And
Yeah.
so like whatever you try to do that's good on both sides of the ball, you're not going to overcome this. So stuff happens like that.
Carter, I don't think anything would surprise me with this year's team, especially given the past couple years and the craziness. I mean, we're talking about they won 3 games last year, right? There's not really anywhere else to go but up. How far up? And that's the real question. And I think 7 wins is fair. 8 wins probably achievable, but that's what makes the Boston College ACC opener on the road. That's what makes the Pitt home Friday night game. Those early games, you're going to have to get those right, or else you're going to be playing from behind the rest of the year. Like,
They better do work early because the back half of the schedule gets very tough.
except for Stanford. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they got first place.
I don't know. First place
First
Stanford,
place vote.
you never know.
The back half of the schedule, every team has first place votes
Right,
except
exactly.
Virginia. Virginia's the only one that doesn't.
Okay, interesting.
Somehow Stanford does, but Virginia doesn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and everybody else is going through this too. Like, I think if you asked that same thing about Virginia, would you be surprised if Virginia didn't go 7-5 or 8-4? They're coming off of a phenomenal season last year. They've got a quarterback in Bo Prabula, who they named the starter.
I don't think it's very good, personally. But
He can run the ball.
How
run it, yeah.
good
I think they're going to be able to
Virginia-
run the ball as a team.
they are. Yeah.
Virginia has a pretty weak schedule to an extent. I mean, they've really got SMU, and that's it.
Go Mountaineers.
How intriguing
Here's
is
my
that?
take on UVA. I think they can run the ball. They got their whole line back. They got that Tennessee running back.
Yeah, Peyton Smith. Yeah, from Salem.
He's there.
I'm sorry, Peyton Lewis. I'm sorry.
Prabula can run the ball. Their receivers and tight ends are a complete mystery.
Yeah.
Prabula's throwing ability, I think, is a question mark. But I think they played good defense since Rodzinski's been there. That defense has been really sharp.
Honestly, they got to be
Cam
something
Robinson?
like Virginia Tech under drones.
Yeah, Cam Robinson, that guy's a dude.
Oh, yeah.
Like he could be
Yeah.
the defensive player. He could be player of the year in the ACC if he has that kind of season. And I think that's enough to keep. I don't think UVA is going to drop completely off the map. I don't think they'll win 11 games again. But people are like, oh, you picked UVA over Virginia Tech. He's like, yeah, I think they're still a pretty solid team.
And their schedule is weak.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, they play 2 FCS teams.
Well, Delaware's now.
Delaware's
Group of FBS.
FBS now.
Are they?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
But I mean, Syracuse is at the bottom of the league.
That NC State opener is really interesting.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
2 teams that, like, the winner of that game really does have an easy path
They
at the
do, yeah.
ACC.
Yeah, yeah,
Even if they don't
absolutely.
run the table, they could win enough games that they could be up there near the end.
Yeah.
That was originally a non-conference game till last year when they went to 9 games. Now it's a conference game again. Because
And it was
last year they
also
played the
supposed
game
to
in
be in
Raleigh.
This
Brazil.
league is so
It's supposed
stupid.
to be a
Right,
non-conference game
Yeah.
in Brazil, and now it's a conference
Right.
game, season
Charlottesville.
opener, week 0 game still.
NC
Yeah.
State, Michael Vick, West Virginia, and Charlotte. What a way to start your season. Michael Vick and the Norfolk State Spartans coming to
I
town.
don't say it very often, but go Mountaineers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick, you have everyone. You have the SMU schedule. You can pull up. It'll. So here's SMU. SMU was picked second. SMU opens against Florida State, Louisville, BC, UVA. They close the year. Notre Dame. Like this is the team the media picked second.
If they get past Florida State and Louisville, look at the rest of that schedule, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's an easier schedule than Tech.
Also, get past Florida State.
Yeah, right, I
We're
know.
talking about
I don't
Florida
even know
State
why
like
I'm
they're
saying that.
mid-90s.
Hey, Florida State got
Bobby
3
Bowden.
first place votes.
That is helmet sticker bias there because I think there's a greater chance that Norvell gets fired than that they win the ACC on this.
I
season.
agree.
Right.
A much better
I
chance.
was just picking a schedule at random, but like that is if that September 19th SMU Louisville game in Louisville will be mighty juicy. Outside of that, it's really Notre Dame.
Which is an out of conference.
Which is out of conference game.
I know.
So, yeah, right.
No, Louisville, you could be talking about a one-loss or undefeated SMU
Look at
team.
that. 2 of your first 3 on the road, and then your last 2 on the road. And in the middle, you play 6 out of 7 at home.
And have and you have an open week in there.
Yeah.
On October 30th.
Yeah, Halloween night in the dome.
At the dome, man. That's what makes this whole thing so interesting because I remember last year we were at ACC kickoff and I think Andy and I both sat next to each other and we were going game by game for every team.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end you add
I was
them
going to do
all
that
up.
this year, and I'm like 17 again. I'm not. Doing
Yeah, but you add them
I was
all
at the
up.
beach trying to. I'm like, no, we're going off vibes.
Your ballot might look a
Going
little
on vibes.
wonky because some teams like only play 1 or 2 like really good teams.
Right.
And they've got if you go off of pure the media poll, they've got Boston College, Syracuse, Wake, and Stanford, SMU.
Mm-hmm.
4 of their 9 conference games are against teams that were picked in the bottom 5 of the league.
I think you can pull up just about every ACC team schedule and look at it and say that's an easier schedule than Virginia Tech's. I don't know that for a fact.
It'd be tough to get. I mean, they play 5 of the top 6.
Right.
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 Mm-hmm.
And with
the top
more,
3 of those on the road.
and with more road games overall than home
Yeah.
Nick,
games.
what about you have Cal's schedule?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get in the queue here too. Go ahead, sorry.
Here's Cal's schedule. Clemson at home, and they're at NC State, at SMU, back-to-back weeks at Virginia off of an open week. That's a little bit more challenging
Cal has to play 3 straight road games.
with an open
with the
week.
bye, but yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
They might as well just stay out there, just
Work
work their way back to the West Coast.
Yeah.
I would say
They
that's
just go by train, cross country travel.
I would say that's probably one of the more challenging league schedules, but probably middle of the pack. That doesn't come close to Tech's.
Miami's not on it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
You know,
who
If
does
you avoid
Miami play, Nick?
this year, that feels advantageous because they seem like a
Here's
team
Miami's
that's locked
schedule.
in. Although
Miami
I will
kicks
note, Miami picked to win the conference. Still has never won the ACC.
that's
Right,
true.
yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good point.
Miami plays at Stanford to kick off the season on a
Stanford?
Friday night.
Their first 3 ACC games are at Stanford, at Wake, at Clemson.
Their last 3 games are at home.
That's a weird schedule.
Duke, Virginia Tech, and BC to end the year. That is
I don't think anybody should ever play 3 straight conference home games and 3 straight conference road games.
It's a little strange.
but Miami doesn't. Who else like outside of Clemson? Miami doesn't really have anyone that jumps off the page.
what do we make? What do we make of Clemson?
I've got them
year?
6th.
I think I put them 3rd or 4th, and I didn't feel great about
I
it.
could see them finishing there because there's talent on their team. They've just got so many question marks on offense. So their top 2 running backs combined have fewer career rushing yards than Bill Davis, who's going to be Virginia Tech's 3rd running back.
That's great.
Well, we don't know
Here's
if they have a
Clemson's
quarterback
schedule.
either.
Is Bill Davis going to be the 3rd running back?
Probably, but
Or is Mickens going to be the 3rd running back?
yeah, maybe. So who knows?
Clemson is putting an awful lot of stock in a career backup quarterback.
Right,
just
exactly.
being the guy.
Yeah.
Like they are a long way from Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson.
And I see-
college version Deshaun Watson.
Right. I see so much. Virginia Tech in Clemson, and I mean Virginia Tech of the last decade, not the new Virginia Tech. I mean, let's just hire Virginia Tech people for the sake of it, right? Like Virginia Tech.
We're going
did for
back
so
to
long.
Chad Morris.
Right. They're going back to Chad Morris as offensive coordinator. Even and
They got Taj Boyd on
Yeah, he's their
staff.
quarterback.
they've got like 4 former Clemson players as their top assistants for their positions. They've never coached anywhere else. That just seems an awful lot like what Virginia Tech has done or did, over, the last 5 to 10 years, and it got him in a lot of trouble.
So they have like a fifth-year veteran quarterback who's never really played. I mean, isn't this kind of similar to, was it Kelly Bryant who was the quarterback the year, and then Trevor Lawrence took over the job, and everybody's like, he's going to take this job in like week 4.
Right.
I don't think they have a Trevor. Like, they've got some good freshmen, but I don't think it's a Trevor Lawrence freshman that's like, okay, if this guy falters, hand it off to the stud 5-star guy that's going to, be the savior of the program. It just feels like they're, I don't know, a step or two behind what they were previously.
I could see them
that's a tough game going there. Like, going to Clemson and winning is going to be no small task.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's like all caps Clemson.
No.
If Virginia Tech pulls an upset this year, it's going to be Clemson, in my opinion.
That was the poll result that you
Yeah.
did that came up.
Yeah, that's right. So, I wouldn't shock me if Virginia Tech won that game. I could see Clemson going 9-3 this year, but I could see them having another 6-6 season like last year.
Some
or
of
7-6,
those,
whatever it was.
Some of those ACC games look a little tricky. Like their ACC schedule is North Carolina at home, at Cal, Miami at home, Virginia Tech at home, at Florida State, at Syracuse, Georgia Tech at home, at Duke. At Duke's on a Friday night. They got to go to the Dome. Florida State, at Cal, and you've already got Miami at home and Tech at home, and Georgia Tech at home. Like, that I think is a very challenging schedule. It kind of depends on what Clemson team we get.
Yeah.
Like, if we get a Clemson team that kind of resembles the last decade of Virginia Tech, where it takes them a little bit of time to find their identity and, under a new OC and Chad Morris, like
something's weird.
Clemson's so weird because, like, 2 years ago they were in the playoff.
Right.
Right. They had been trending down, but they were still a playoff team.
Right.
And then they dropped off.
They probably weren't national title good, even when they went to the playoff a couple years ago.
Right. I mean, they lost their first game.
Right.
So sort of the argument everybody's like, well, 2 years ago James Franklin was in the playoff.
Right.
Yeah.
He couldn't have dropped off that much. He's still a pretty good coach.
Something's up with Clemson. They needed a new president, and the guy they hired basically got there and said, "Oh, never mind, I don't want this job."
He did the Grandpa Simpson, like walked in and then turned around and right back out.
That's exactly what he did. So I don't know. I think there's some thing going on at Clemson. I think they're part of it because of part of it's because of Dabo, I think, but part of it might just be institutional. I think they're maybe having a little bit trouble adjusting to the modern era. I don't know that for a fact, but that's
they also had a 15-year sort of unparalleled run, which is just tough to keep that going. Inevitably you're going to fall back to the pack, and that happens when people start poaching your coaches. Tony Elliott's gone and running his own program. Venables is gone. Like, I think that was a serious hit for that program to lose those coordinators, because Dabo's not like a schematic guy. He's a motivator.
He's a vibe.
Right. Like, he was the receivers coach when they promoted him to head coach. Like, he's not out scheming people with his offenses and defenses. So he's got to have the right coordinators in place, and he hasn't really had that lately.
While we're on this topic of Clemson, Chris, did you see what Clemson men's basketball tweeted the other day?
Griddly?
Oh yeah.
They have a shirt.
The greatest shirt ever.
They're going overseas, and they have a shirt it says Griddly.
Oh, that's awesome.
I want one of those shirts. I'd wear that on the set if I could get one of those. That was great.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, the other thing with Clemson too, again, not to go on this whole soapbox, but you have to literally look at their schedule, and you have to mathematically yourself count to see whether or not they're playing 8 or 9 league games. So I just did. But here's the interesting part about it. Their non-conference schedule is very bizarre. At LSU, Georgia Southern the next week. Then they play Charleston Southern on October 17th, which is random.
The week
before
the
Hokies. South Carolina.
Yeah, so they get and Charleston Southern is like a bad FCS.
The week that
They get a
before
tune-up
Virginia
game
Tech,
before
too.
they get a
back-
scrimmage of the week they play.
They get
Virginia
2
Tech.
open
Now,
weeks.
Who do we
That
play?
splits up a run of Miami, Virginia Tech, and Florida State.
That
State,
is
right.
Georgia Tech.
So we
the
play.
Hokies.
Dang, that sucks.
But that's a bizarre. That's a
It's
bizarre non-conference
Charleston
schedule.
Southern after Miami, then a bye week.
Right. So 3 weeks.
So they basically have 3 weeks leading up to Virginia Tech.
Good God. So yeah, maybe not that upset.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
All right. Much more coming up on the other side of this break. So let's step aside and hear from one of our title sponsors here on episode 493 of the Tech Sideline podcast.
In real estate, it's not just about buying or selling. It's about finding a place that truly feels like home. That's what drives Richmond-based agent Christine Shepard with Joyner Fine Properties. With more than 30 years of experience, Christine brings a calm, thoughtful, and highly personalized approach, along with a designer's eye that helps buyers see potential and sellers showcase their homes beautifully. A proud fourth-generation Virginia Tech Hokie, Christine leads with a deep sense of community and loyalty, helping clients not just find a house, but truly find where they belong. If you're considering your next move, trust Christine Shepard for a real estate experience rooted in expertise, design, and genuine Hokie heart. This Tech Sideline video comes to you from the Tech Solutions studio. Tech Solutions, located in Arlington, Virginia, provides specialized CETA engineering and financial advisory services to the Department of Defense and Intelligence community. Based on the philosophy of only hiring the best of the best, we pride ourselves on being customer and mission focused. A Washington Post top workplace winner in 2024 and 2025, we're always looking for talented and motivated individuals to join our team. Visit techsolutionsva.com/careers to learn more. That is techsolutionsva.com/careers.
And welcome back to episode 493 of the Tech Sideline podcast. So wrapping up the projected standings in the ACC conversation, if there's anybody that could surprise this year, as Andy alluded to, could be last year's Virginia in 2026. Who do you guys see that being the case throughout the ACC? We'll go round table with it.
I'm just looking at my picks, and I would never rule out somebody like Pitt because they're well coached. I don't know exactly what their schedule looks like. Duke, no matter what you do to them, you always think they're done. They lost this coach, they lost this quarterback, whatever. They're going to be worse. They don't really seem to get worse. That they're always at least solid. Wake Forest was good last year, but I thought they were fortunate to be that good without a good quarterback, right?
They had a stud running back.
They did. That really helped.
I think Cal is one I look at.
I would agree.
David mentioned it earlier, but JKS, just when you have a five-star guy like that, you never know when he's going to make that leap and turn to a really good quarterback. We were talking about it. There's this video that's going around on Twitter where somebody flipped the video so that he was
inverted,
right-handed, and
Oh, I did see
it looks a lot more normal, but he looks
he looks like Mahomes.
He looks a lot like Mahomes going around there. I'm not saying he's going to be Patrick Mahomes, but when you have that pedigree as a five-star guy, eventually that catches up. The talent or production catches up to the talent, and you have something special. And I think there's also a wild card, brand new coach out there. You don't know what you're going to get with that. What if this guy is just a great coach and can whip that team to shape and gets that? I mean, he's a defensive guy. If they get the defense right, and then JKS on offense, I think it could be something interesting. But of those teams on the bottom half of that, that's the one I probably look at the most, because North Carolina is a disaster. BC. Really? I don't see a lot of hope at BC or Stanford. Florida State has some first place votes, but I don't know.
You know what?
You're right,
I'll give Giovanni Heater a shot.
I was gonna say, what would Gio say?
Really?
So Syracuse has his quarterback.
Did you
back.
see Fran Brown's quote at the ACC kickoff?
What
did
you
learn from last year? Is like, have a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
It's like, ouch.
Steve Angeli.
Ouch. I mean, it's true, but ouch.
It was 3 or 4 games into the year last year.
They beat Clemson.
Yeah, they beat Clemson and then lost them. Then they didn't win again. They did not win again.
Angeli played 4 games, threw for 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks. They lost to Tennessee in the opener, beat Clemson on the road. As Nick said, that Tennessee game was competitive. And
not that
but their
competitive. They were my lock that first week in our pick'em, and they lost. That game.
And then Angeli gets hurt, and they're just toast the rest of the year. But Fran Brown, they had a good team 2 years ago. It's like if Angeli can stay healthy, and it seems like he's fully healthy again, like you string some wins together. Nick, I assume that's not one of the schedules you have because Syracuse. No, it's fine because Syracuse isn't on Tech's schedule this year. But I would not sleep on Syracuse.
He didn't anticipate us talking about Syracuse today, David. Jeez.
So my comment,
Geo Heaters.
Yeah.
My comment about JKS is as a true freshman last year, he did really well. And some true freshmen you see who do really well, they take their next step as a sophomore. And then sometimes they take the opposite step as a sophomore, like Lenore Sellers. Right?
What about who was that? Chris Ricks? Did he play as a freshman?
I
He
think
was
he might
like
have.
really good as a freshman, and then he just got
Oh yeah, because
progressively worse.
I think it was Ricks
career.
who beat Virginia Tech in the 2001 Gator Bowl. I think that's correct. So yeah, you're right. You see most guys get better, but sometimes guys get worse. And like you said, there's a coaching change in there, and maybe it'll be better, maybe it'll be worse for him. Who knows? But yes, from a
You
ceiling
mentioned Sellers.
standpoint, yeah.
mean, new OC came in last year for South Carolina, and
it was a
Sellers was not
disaster.
good.
Which, by the way, Chris Coleman correctly
nailed that
trashed
one.
that
Good point,
hire.
yes.
For that, I remember you did that, and all these South Carolina fans like, he's from the NFL, he knows this stuff, and
Yeah.
Chris is like, he's hot garbage.
They
Yeah,
literally
sure
fired
enough,
him
he
8
was
games
hot
into his
garbage.
tenure. Yeah, they literally fired him 8 games in.
That was bad.
On the Syracuse point,
Sure.
I'm looking at Syracuse's schedule. It's not
Yeah, it's
great.
Not good. Not good.
They got Cal at home, Pitt on the road, at UVA versus Louisville, at UNC versus SMU versus Clemson, at NC State, and they closed the year against Notre Dame.
This whole podcast is just showing how ridiculous modern college football is, that we actually have to analyze each team's schedule to break down our picks, because every team has a different schedule.
Not only that, but we're also like factoring in West Coast travel.
Right.
So college football league.
They gotta
Like,
go to
what
Cal.
are we doing? It's like, oh, well, it's a tough travel. Then you go back cross country. It's like, I'm sure all these kids are in class the whole time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can't wait for everybody to be wrong. It's that annual time of the year. We look forward to revisiting this at the end of November, and hopefully everybody. I don't think we're going to be very, very accurate with stuff, because that's just kind of how it goes. But would be surprised if Miami does not play in the ACC title game. So with that being said, let's move on. So Chris, you recently did a poll on TechSideline.com. You asked the fans 5 different questions. Most got about 1,600 votes, but you essentially asked 5 questions about the team and the roster in 2026 to get their thoughts on some certain areas. So I'm going to ask you guys all 5 of these questions and get your thoughts. Number 1 was, who will lead Virginia Tech in rushing yards in 2026? Marcellus Hawkins, Jeffrey Overton, or Bill Davis. There was also another option too, but other was not an option that was used quite a bit. So those 3 we'll go with. So
Yeah, so I picked Marcellus Hawkins, and so did the fans with 79%. Now, that said, that's a little bit risky, because 2 of his 3 seasons in Division II were ended early, like after the first 3 or 4 games due to injury, and he missed the UVA game last year due to injury and was out for the spring due to injury. But if he's healthy all year, I think he'll lead Virginia Tech in rushing.
Will he average 7.5 yards per carry, though? What was the number last year that we made fun of Nick for?
That was like the Cal game, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
7.5. We're like, you're out of your mind, Nick. And then he averaged 8 or whatever it was in that game. Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy pick on that one. I'd be shocked if you'd have to have an injury for somebody else to be the leading rusher. That would be my thought.
I mean, I think Overton will definitely contribute, but Hawkins will be the lead back, especially after James Franklin raved about Marcellus Hawkins for like 4 minutes, answering your question at ACC kickoff. Said he's like, if you were going to build a Frankenstein prototypical running back, it'd be Marcellus Hawkins.
But here's a better question. Which running back will have the most touchdowns?
Because he only had one
He had one
year.
last year. I
Who
mean,
was it last
Overton
year?
had
Overton?
one, right?
He had one against Miami.
That's what happens when you have a quarterback who can run.
I don't
Around
think-
the goal line, you
I
run
don't
with the
think
quarterback.
Ruckmeyer's number is going to be called like Kyron Drones.
Right.
last year too many
I
times.
hope not.
They might. It's like, what's wrong with Ty Howell if he's making those calls?
Maybe Bill Davis. You need
he only got 5 votes.
Here's
No.
the thing.
I'm
you
saying
need
for
to-
most
I got you.
touchdowns.
Sorry. Yeah.
You need a bowling ball back around the goal
But
line.
Hawkins is that. He's 5'10", 223.
I think the money would
You
be
know?
on Hawkins getting the ball
Yeah.
more. The way they talked about Davis since he got here, and like he comes in and Franklin's like, he's a cheeseburger shy of 250 or something like that. It's like, that's the way you talk about a player that just gets it. Like,
Yeah. He
I
did-
know it's a motivational ploy, but still, I don't
He was
know
pretty
that-
thick.
Nice.
He just did set his. He just set a PR in squat though.
Okay.
So he's having a good offseason.
I don't know.
Yep.
But it was like last year. All we kept hearing about was Terry and Stewart's injury history and everything coming in, and then he really was sort of nicked up throughout the year. He had his moments.
Stewart never did anything either.
Yeah, but he
That is
he had some
yeah.
moments.
That's true.
Had some moments last year, but he never had like he was never like the guy. And Hawkins was pretty much the guy from the outset. And they were telling us that in the preseason. The whole time they're like, Hawkins is doing this, Hawkins is doing that. He's incredible.
I
And sure
interviewed
enough, he was the
George
guy.
Balance in like July last year, and I said, of all the newcomers, who's impressed you the most? He's like Marcellus Hawkins. So yeah.
Well, Pry was big on, because remember, like Terry and Stewart going in was supposed to be kind of like the highlights of it. But like all throughout fall camp last year, Brent Pry was super high on Marcellus Hawkins
Oh, yeah.
too.
It
Then
was
you
from
saw
day
it.
one.
Yeah.
And I think Hawkins obviously won Overton too. I'm curious how much Messiah Mickens can factor in, especially now. You don't have to worry about redshirting him.
Right.
It's 5 for 5. He can just play and not worry about that. And if you have a guy that's that talented, if the recruiting ranking is correct with everything, it could be interesting to watch.
Yeah, he missed the spring. I assume he's back now. I saw him and I guess the last time we were over there and they fed us at the student athlete
For the when we
Performance
talk to the
Center.
coaches.
Yeah. He's big like Hawkins, but he's not as ripped as Hawkins. He's still got a little bit of baby fat on him, but he's definitely going to look the part after a year or two.
All right, who will lead Virginia Tech in receptions in 2026? This was a surprise to me. Luke Reynolds led the way with 47%. I'll let you read the rest, but Quayshawn Brown, Quayshawn or Kayshawn?
Quayshawn.
I always struggle.
Quayshawn.
Quayshawn Brown was the second choice.
Queso.
Like Case, okay. Aiden Green and then Marlon Jackson. Those are the four options that you put out there. Other than the other, what was your who will lead Virginia Tech in receptions in you guys' opinion? We'll go round table again.
Brown, he had over 60 at Duke last year. It's going to be a different offense, of course. I don't know that he'll catch over 60 at Virginia Tech this year, but I know everybody's buying into and I think Luke Reynolds is an excellent tight end. I think he's going to have a great season. I've seen some people pick him first team All ACC, and I think he's that talented. But even looking at Penn State, it's only been once in the last 4 years where a tight end led them in receiving, and that was the year with Tyler Warren, who was, of course, a first-round pick. So I was a little bit surprised if it was 47% for Luke Reynolds and 33% for
I feel like that was just
Quayshawn
spring
Brown.
game bias.
Probably.
They threw to him again and again and
Again
again.
and again,
I think that'll tighten up as other teams perhaps see what he's capable of out there. I'd probably go with Brown, but I'm a little surprised Aiden Green was this far down the list because I think we've never seen him with a quarterback that can just throw it.
Right.
His whole career has been like that, just cycling through guys, and Drones was never really the accurate passer that you wanted back there. I'm curious to see what I think he could be a wide receiver one and a pretty good one in this offense if given the chance. And this is his. I guess he could be one of those guys who could get another year, right? Because he did not redshirt.
Right.
So will be interesting to see. But him being third and that far back at 19%, a little surprised.
Yeah.
He's made some great catches in his career, too.
Spectacular ones. And that Miami one he had last. He made that one in the Military Bowl in the rain.
Yeah.
That was like the only completed pass of that game to a receiver.
He had one in Minnesota in that bowl game, too.
Where he hurdled the guy.
Yeah,
and then he
I
made
haven't
that
got
one on
photo
the
of it.
sideline against Miami. I mean, athleticism off the charts. I know Franklin is not known for wide receiver development necessarily. Ask any Penn State fan on Twitter and you'll get some responses on that. But I think he's a talent that hasn't really been tapped into yet.
Yep.
Yeah, I was actually going to pick Green too. But Marlon Jackson, I'm interested to see what his impact is because he was banged up this spring. We didn't hear a ton about him. He's a guy who's pretty good at Louisiana Tech despite like quarterback play being up and down. And where does he factor in? He's like in a very inexperienced wide receiver room. He's kind of the third most experienced guy. Maybe Takai Heath would be the other one. And I think like we know so much about Brown and Green, how the rest of that room comes along. I think we'll say a lot about the offense. If Jackson plays a big role, if Takai Heath plays a big role, Keelan Adams and Chance Wiggins, those are the guys people have been waiting on. You wrote about it in a section of the article last week, I think, where you wrote about the green run guys, Chris. And I thought you hit the nail on the head. Now, the redshirt sophomores, now is kind of the time for them to start coming on. But I wouldn't expect anybody outside of Brown and Green to maybe lead the Hokies in receptions. But if they can spread it around to some of those depth pieces, I think it'll say a lot about how the offense is a little bit more balanced.
Who will lead Virginia Tech in tackles in 2026? Noah Chambers, 42%. Caleb Spencer, 37%. Quentin Reddish, Keon Wiley, and Tyson Flowers. We'll go round table again. What do you think, Chris?
I picked Caleb Spencer because he's the leading returning tackler, and he's projected to start again. I think Chambers is a fine pick. But at the same time, he might not start. We don't know with 100% certainty that he's going to start, like a number of other positions on defense, particularly on the inside like that. But those two ran away with it. Like number 3 was Quentin Reddish at 7%, right? Now, what I'll say is that I believe in 3 of the last 4 years, or maybe it was 2 of the, but I think it was 3 of the last 4 years, a safety led Penn State in tackles. Now, it's a different defense, Brent Pry was not the defensive coordinator at Penn State over the last 4 years. He's been the head coach at Virginia Tech. But it's not outside the realm of possibility that you could see a safety lead Virginia Tech in tackles. And normally you think of that as a bad thing, but obviously it hasn't been a bad thing for Penn State because they've been pretty good. In fact, the year they made the semifinals, their leading tackler was a safety, and their third leading tackler was a safety, and they both had over 90 tackles.
Yeah, I'd probably go with one of the linebackers here. I don't know necessarily which one. I think Spencer kind of got there by default last year. I'm not saying he didn't make a lot of plays, but I didn't think like, oh man, he put up like 120 tackles. Yeah. Like one of those BC linebacker type tackle seasons where you kind of question the scorekeeping on it. Right. Like, did that guy really have 25 tackles in that game? Give me a break. Like he breathed on a guy and he gets a half a tackle on that. Spencer Chambers. I think either one would be a good pick.
I'd probably go with Spencer. And I think this is, if you recall, he was still getting adjusted to the position kind of in 2024, but he was kind of still playing on the outside. And now last year he was on the inside for.
This is the first season he's going to be able to stay at the same position from 1 year to the next in his entire college career.
I think he'll benefit from
And he's
that.
another that should have a fifth year too.
He and Green
didn't redshirt.
Yeah. So I would go Spencer.
All right, who will lead Virginia Tech in sacks in 2026? Asen Stevens led the way, 39%. Kamari Copeland, 29%. Javian Hilson, 14%. And then you go further down the list, Samuel Okunlola, I believe is how you pronounce it. Jason Abbey, Malachi Williams, and Elijah Fall were all 5% or lower. So what are our thoughts there?
It's really interesting. 39% for Asen Stevens led the way. And he has exactly 1.5 tackles for loss and 0 sacks in his career. But that's who the fans picked. I think it's typical to pick the guy who you think is your best defensive end. And he's the one that's been getting the hype in the offseason. Now, Okunlola, when he was at Maryland, he had 5 sacks in one season as a defensive end there and 3 in another season. So he actually leads Virginia Tech probably in career sacks with 8. Right, but he was hurt in the spring, so nobody got to see him play. Kamari Copeland had 4.5 last year, which is a good number for a defensive tackle. So that's a solid pick. Javion Hilson was actually third with 14%. He was third by a mile, well ahead of those other guys. We don't even know for certain that he's in the 2 deep right now. Right. So I think this was a very difficult one because there's no proven pass rusher on this team. I think Virginia Tech finished 108th in sacks per game last year. I'm confident that number is going to be better, probably substantially better this year, but it's going to be sacks by committee, in my opinion.
Yeah, if this could be one where like the team leader has 5 or something like that.
But then like 3 others have 4.
Yeah, if that's the case, I think Copeland could get there, but typically it's tougher to get there from the interior than the outside. I think Stevens is a good pick just because I think he's going to play the way they've talked about him. I think he is the starter. He's going to get the most snaps of anybody on that defensive line. And if you do that and you're a pretty good pass rusher, I think you get to the quarterback a certain amount of time.
Copeland told us down in Charlotte that Stevens timed at 4.5. This summer, which is pretty good for a guy who's 250, 260 pounds.
I think I would probably go Stevens, but I think this is maybe the biggest question. And you talk about what happened. You mentioned earlier the hypothetical, Andy. What would happen if a guy like Kamari Copeland got injured? It seems like Emmett Law's injury is pretty serious. Like, what's the defensive line depth, both end and tackle? Huge question. We've talked to Brent Pry about that. You mentioned Okunlola. If he can come in and have an impact, he was banged up in the spring, so we didn't really see him. He's a guy with experience. You said five sacks at Maryland. It was Pitt.
Excuse me, Pitt. Yeah,
but
you're right.
Between there and Colorado, he's got 8. That's probably more than
actually all 8 of them came at Pitt. And honestly, I'll take a former Pat Narduzzi defensive player on my defensive line.
But he's probably got more sacks than the entire rest of the defensive end room combined.
Absolutely.
And I think this is an opportunity for a guy like Jason Abbey, who's kind of matured, as Chris always talks about. It takes some of those guys up front a little bit of time to get seasoned, right? Is this his breakout year? It'll be interesting to see what guys outside of Asen Stevens come along, because Stevens is a guy everybody knows about, but even still, he's kind of raw a little bit.
All right, who will lead Virginia Tech in interceptions in 2026? Jaquez White, transfer from Troy, 31%. IBM, 18%. Quentin Reddish, 17%. Tyson Flowers, 16%. As you can tell, there's a lot of wide-ranging thoughts here. Josh Clark, 13%. Cam Chadwick, 3%. Thomas Williams, 3%. So who leads the Hokies in INTs?
I randomly picked Isaiah Brown Murray, but again, it's random because interceptions themselves are so random.
Who led Tech in interceptions last year?
Did anybody have more than one?
There were not a lot. I know that.
That one Isaiah Cash had at Louisville was awesome.
Yeah.
I remember Isaiah Brown Murray's against Wake because he returned it to like the 3-yard line and Tech had to settle for a field goal.
Yeah.
Right. I just don't remember too many interceptions.
Tech only had 4 picks all
well,
year.
there you go.
And,
That answers that question.
all of
Can
them,
you name who had them? Can you
I
name
just
who had
named
them?
two.
you said Cash and, Brown Murray.
Can you do it? Cash and Brown Murray. Who are the others?
Some random defensive tackle.
One was one was injured all season. Quentin Reddish, basically.
Oh, the Vanderbilt game.
And the
Yes.
other
Right.
one was Kamari Copeland.
Wow.
What game was that? The tip pass?
It was like a tip pass.
Was it
against somebody.
Wofford?
I think it was.
I think it was against
It was
Wofford.
like
It-
what do you
you're
think, like
right.
a diving catch?
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah,
Yes,
it was an
that's
impressive
right.
play. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Also, it kind of shows you how up and down interceptions could be 4 all year. Looking at this list, I go, Josh Clark at 5th on there. I think he's going to play a lot. We haven't seen a lot of him. I think he might have that ability. And also, interceptions is not really the best indicator of how good of a defensive back you are.
Jimmy Williams had one his senior year.
Right, yeah. Sometimes it just means that you don't have any interceptions because nobody's throwing at you because you're just that good. And you just shut down that thing. You might get a lot of picks because people are just throwing at you a lot and an errant pass and you pick it off. So this one feels very random. And, if I were a betting man, I would bet on somebody lower on the odds just because you get better number.
Clark might be a good pick because not a lot of people. I think he's going to start.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, especially if they have a nickel.
Right, right. But nobody's going to know anything about him because he hasn't played yet. So he might get a lot of action over there. He also has tremendous hands. He was a wide receiver in high school, and his film was really impressive too. So that's probably a pretty good pick.
I think I'll go Quentin Reddish.
Okay.
I think, he's a guy, he had a pick last year and barely played. He's made, I still think about Quentin Reddish's career, go back to like the field goal return for a touchdown he had. He's a very athletic player, and he's shown really good flashes. He's just been kind of banged up. If he can stay healthy, I think he's probably the safety. Maybe he's the safety you trust the most. I don't know. Tyson Flowers obviously has a lot of experience, but I think he's probably the future at that position because Flowers, I think he's done after this year. Reddish has eligibility left.
Quentin Reddish intercepted the recently released Diego Pavia.
Yes. Yeah. Didn't make it to training camp, but that's okay. That's part of it. All right, so I lied. I said 5 questions. There were 6. Math was not my major in school. There were 6 questions. The last one, you teased this earlier. Which team is Virginia Tech most likely to upset this season? There were 3 choices. Clemson led the way with 56%. You can understand that. SMU, 34%. And then the Miami Hurricanes at 10%. What is the most likely game of those 3 that Virginia Tech wins?
Well, I picked Clemson, just like the fans did, and maybe a little bit of me regrets it after I saw their schedule before Virginia Tech. They basically have 3 weeks to prepare. The last time that happened to Virginia Tech was 2019 when UVA had a bye week. Then they played Liberty, and that was back when Liberty was still FCS. And they had a bye week, then Liberty, then Virginia Tech. So they basically had 3 weeks to prepare for Virginia Tech in that game. And that can be difficult. So, but on paper, it kind of seems like Clemson just based on how they trended last year. And I think he's kind of grasping at straws going back to the well with an offensive coordinator from a decade and a half ago, but we'll see.
Clemson's a good choice. I think you mentioned the schedule. I think it's a tough venue, regardless of how good Clemson is. Miami, I think, just talent-wise, is tough. Is going to SMU? Is that like going into a hornet's nest there? Like, what is the stadium name? Gerald J. Ford Stadium. It's not
President
not
Gerald
named after the
Ford.
president, just named after a rich guy, I think, that donated to the place.
They get a lot of those.
Is that like the most? What is the what's the thing on the college football game?
Oh yeah, the
pulse meter, yeah.
Stadium pulse? Yeah.
Stadium pulse. Is that really high up on the list?
Right.
Isn't that a Friday night game?
It is a Friday
Yeah,
night.
I'm more concerned
might be
about
kind
their
of
quarterback than I am their stadium.
I know.
would
I'm
agree.
just saying, like, if you're trying to account for everything that goes into it. I wonder if maybe that's one that might be overlooking a little bit, but I don't think any of them are all. I think if you look at the percentages and probably the ESPN FBI thing, the Clemson game is probably their best shot.
Yeah. SMU will be coming off of a game at Syracuse the week before.
Oh, body blow game. They go up there to the Dome, get beat around a little bit by Gio's boys up there, and then come back. And never know.
I don't know.
sorry.
I think Clemson's probably the easiest, but you know, it's hard because all three of those games are in November. Like they're so late in the year. It'd be a little bit different if we were talking about a September game. I mean, think about,
or you catch Clemson in Vizina's first start, or something like that. I think that would make it a lot easier.
That's where Fuente always thrived, was catching teams early. You beat West Virginia to open the year. You beat North Carolina to open the year.
North Carolina, especially. I think he liked playing them early. He's like, they don't practice, they don't do anything,
and they all scheme
like they're really
Tennessee that
talented,
game,
but they're not
year.
like a great staff.
Yeah, that was second week of the year, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a little bit more difficult to tell when you're playing them so late in the year in November, because it's like, who's going to be healthy? Who's going to be available? And at that point, people's seasons could be over, or or really, completely different directions, I should say.
So follow-up question, do they win one of those three games? Does Virginia Tech win one of those three games?
That's a good question. I actually thought they would beat Clemson, but now that I
saw the schedule,
that's
a real-time reaction there from Chris Coleman.
Yeah, that's tough. Like if you take me to Vegas right now that I've seen Clemson's schedule go into that game, and I'd probably say no.
Okay.
I don't have them winning one of those games,
Okay.
but upsets happen.
Yeah.
I'd probably say no, but we'll see.
So I'm going to tease this a little bit. We're going to talk more about this on the Teal podcast in a couple of days. But guess what? We've absolutely got to talk about this. And Chris, you're a sports guy, I know. So we'll pivot to you real fast. So Carolina football is back in the news. Michael Lombardi, the handpicked GM from the New England Patriots, making $1.5 million a year, highest paid GM in college football to put together that roster, is now on paid leave. What do you make about that whole situation in Chapel Hill, and what type of year the Tar Heels could have?
And now there are rumors that there's an investigation, a college sports commission
there's
investigation.
also that side of things too.
We'll see if a CSC investigation lasts as long as an NCAA investigation. That'll be very interesting. I think UNC fans should hope that the investigation is pretty quick and it implicates Belichick in some sort of cheating so they can fire him with cause.
They want to Jeremy Pruitt him.
Right. Just get him the heck out of there, because his era is going to be a disaster. So think about this. He's going to be like a Hall of Fame NFL coach. But where would you rank him in ACC coaches?
Low.
Pretty low.
Right, exactly.
I mean, he wasn't exactly coming to college on a heater. The end of his NFL career was not going great.
Here's a hypothetical. Would you rank Bill Belichick ahead or behind Bill O'Brien?
College coaches?
Oh, I would rather have Bill O'Brien running my program without question.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's so tough to judge O'Brien based on what BC has for resources and players right now.
But he wouldn't bring any baggage at all.
If anything, he
brings
would
a little bit of baggage.
If anything, Bill O'Brien would fix the mess that. I mean, he's proven to do that. Fix the mess that he inherited.
Right. No, I don't think Bill O'Brien's all sunshine and ice cream and everything to be around. Is what it kind of sounds like from his NFL days. But
what's up, Trevor?
What's up, Trevor? Yes.
But I think for the college level, he's a better choice than Bill Belichick.
Yeah, that was just throwing out a hypothetical. Hey, BC's fully funding RevShare now. Maybe this is the year for BC.
Maybe
I still picked him sixth. I picked him
funding
16th.
RevShare. We're
talking like the minimum.
We're 10 exits past fully funding RevShare.
Right.
We're talking about $50 million rosters here. Come on.
I picked UNC 14th, and that was even before I found out about all this.
I mean, they weren't terrible on defense last
year.
They were a disaster offensively.
Remember, they should have beaten UVA.
They were like a yard away.
They should have. Yeah, they should have.
That was a really. I approve of the call to go for 2 in overtime there.
Right.
It was a bad play call. Right. They rolled their left-handed quarterback to the right.
Right, yes.
Gio Lopez?
They should have just had him throw back to the offensive tackle.
That was
maybe
the
it would
move.
work against UVA.
Right there.
I think the situation is hilarious, Carter.
Yeah,
I
do too.
It's of their own doing.
Correct.
Yes, they have created this situation, and it's fun to not have any dog in the fight. It's not like we cover North Carolina. we just get to sit back and watch it burn, and it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny here is their athletic director did not hire Bill Belichick, right?
Right. And he's retiring.
Right, exactly. He's like, I'm done with this garbage.
Smoking a cigar and cackling on his way out.
Meanwhile, the people who did hire Bill Belichick basically got censored by the North Carolina government because what they did wasn't legal.
Right.
Basically.
And they can't afford what they're doing.
No. What's interesting here is that Virginia Tech's athletic department pretty much didn't hire, or athletic director pretty much didn't hire James Franklin either. I mean, technically he did. But he would have tried to hire James Franklin, I'm sure, if he was left to his own devices. But I don't know if that would have gotten done if it wasn't for that other group fronting it and everything like that. So it's interesting to see how when one athletic director kind of loses control, the mess that it leaves, whereas at Virginia Tech, when Tech's athletic director loses control, a group of people were able to step up and make what looks like a responsible hire.
Do you think North Carolina would have done the right thing and hired James Franklin if he had been available when they were like, James Franklin sort of fell in Virginia Tech's lap.
Right.
Like, I cannot emphasize the timing
Absolutely.
of how that worked, of not firing Pry the previous season, firing him early in the season, frankly getting surprisingly fired when he did, and then them having that, courting period where they were basically one of the only ones that could go after him that way.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if Franklin was available when North Carolina was hiring, that they wouldn't have fixated on a, 70-something year NFL coach on the downward spin of his career. I don't know.
It's hard to say because I don't know anything about those people who made the decision. I assume they just probably don't know much about football.
Probably
Yeah, I
just
mean,
have a
they're all
lot of
university people.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of different reasons why that's funny. We are going to wrap it up. You guys are going to have a great conversation about that on Talking with Teal this week. I hate to miss it, but I look forward to listening. So what is coming up on TechSideline.com? We will go roundtable with it. Andy, or rather Chris, we'll start with you.
I'll have a Friday Q&A on Friday, and that is followed by Andy's mailbag on Thursday, right?
Well, I have mine Thursday, followed by yours on Friday.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thursday, Friday is the order.
That's right. Yeah,
days of the week.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just kind of filling time, I think, until we get to August 5th is when they report for camp. Correct. So we'll be in sort of full practice mode next week. This was another sort of get through the week type deal with content before we start that up.
What about you, David?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot going on. Mm-hmm. I would expect some basketball scheduling news by the end of the month.
Preseason All ACC team tomorw,
right?
At this time,
yeah, that too.
Should say Wednesday at this time if you're listening on Wednesday. But
yeah, so it's quiet. The weird part about ACC kickoff being a week earlier this year than previous years is it leaves 2 full weeks of nothing going on.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, yeah. But nice to reconvene for a podcast, and I'm sure Teal will have plenty of opinions on the North Carolina situation.
I hate to miss it. But Nick, you got anything behind the scenes?
Just one video this week.
All right.
Hey,
Talking with you on Thursday.
What about Bud Foster? I'm sure there will be more Bud Foster next week.
Yeah, next week, I believe. Bud Foster?
Next week.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. All right. That'll do it. Episode 493 of the Tech Sideline Podcast. For Chris Coleman, David Cunningham, Andy Bitter, Nick Brown, I'm Carter Hill saying so long from Blacksburg. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you very soon.